Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we've got a really fun one. We're breaking down a pretty wild gaming challenge. We're pitting an ancient, super budget graphics card against a brand new, full-priced game. The big question is, can a GPU that costs less than the game itself actually run it?
All right, let's get into it. This is a real classic David versus Goliath story, but for PC hardware. We're about to see just how well some seriously old tech can hold up against the demands of today. So in one corner, we've got The Outer Worlds 2, a brand new, demanding game built on the very modern, very shiny Unreal Engine 5. And in the other corner, our little underdog, a 4GB AMD Radeon RX 570. This thing is a legendary budget card, but it first came out way back in 2017. Now, the game itself, a standard 60-pound release. Nothing too shocking there. But you gotta keep that number in your head, because what we're putting it up against, well, that's what makes this whole thing so wild. And get this, the graphics card, the thing you need to even see the game, was picked up for just 49 quid. I mean, think about that. It literally costs less than the software it's trying to run. Okay, so first things first, we need a baseline, right? What happens if you just boot up the game at a standard 1080p resolution and crank every single setting down to the absolute bottom? Yeah, so right out of the gate, let's just manage some expectations here. That dream of a super smooth 60 frames per second, not gonna happen. It's just completely off the table. This little card just doesn't have that kind of horsepower. But hey, it's not all bad news. The card actually manages to hover right around a playable 30 frames per second. Now, don't get me wrong. The GPU and its 4 gigs of video memory are absolutely screaming for help. They're completely maxed out, but it's hanging in there. Now, here's something that's kind of weird, but really interesting. You'd think turning off anti-aliasing completely would be the best for performance, right? But nope. In this case, using TAA, that's temporal anti-aliasing, it actually gives you more frames. The game seems to find that slightly softer image easier to handle. The end result? It's playable, but to really smooth out those random dips and stutters, you're definitely going to want to cap it at 30. Okay, so native resolution is a bit of a struggle. What's the next logical step? Well, you think, let's try some of that modern upscaling magic. You know, stuff like AMD's FSR or Intel's XES. The whole idea is they render the game at a lower resolution and then cleverly scale it up, hopefully giving you a massive performance boost. But does it actually work here? You know, this is the whole sales pitch for these technologies, especially for older cards like this. It's supposed to be a free lunch. But on a card that's already low on memory and power, the results were, well, they were not what we expected. And yeah, this chart pretty much says it all. The game's built-in upscaler, TSR, gave us a tiny bump in FPS but made the grass look all glitchy and weird. AMD's own FSR, same story, minimal gains, but the image quality took a real hit. And Intel's XESS, on this AMD card, it was actually the slowest of the bunch. So yeah, none of them were the magic bullet we were looking for. This quote from the original test just hits the nail on the head. You're getting a blurrier, uglier picture, but you're still getting the same performance drops as before. And that's the thing you gotta remember. Modern upscalers aren't free. They actually use up some of the GPU's power just to run the algorithm. And for an old card that has no power to spare, that overhead just eats up any potential gains. The trade-off just isn't worth it. So, okay, if all the fancy new tech doesn't work, what do? Where do we go from here? Turns out, the answer isn't some brand new algorithm. It's a trick that's, well, it's pretty old school. The answer is something PC gamers have been doing for decades, way before upscaling was even a thing. It's this simple. You just lower the resolution. That's it. No fancy upscaling, no digging through hidden settings. The best fix was to just go into the menu and drop the resolution from 1080p down to 1600 by 900. You know, good old 900p. And would you believe it, that one simple change gave us a huge immediate jump in performance. The average frame rate went from struggling around 30 all the way up to nearly 40 FPS. Now, yeah, the picture is a little bit softer, a little less crisp, but that 10-frame boost, it makes the game feel so much smoother and more responsive when you're actually playing it. All right, so let's put this all together. What's the final verdict? If you're out there running on similar budget hardware, how do you actually get a new, demanding game like this to be, fun to play? Okay, so here's the playbook.
It really boils down to one choice. What do you care about more, crisp visuals or smooth gameplay? If you want the sharpest possible pictures, stick with 1080p and make sure TAA is on. But if you're like me and you just want that smooth, fluid feel, dropping to 900p is absolutely the move. But for either option, this last step is super important. Find a tool to lock your frame rate at 30. Trust me, that consistency is what will make the experience feel stable and solid. So this whole thing proves it. Yes, you can absolutely play a brand new 60-pound game on a 49-pound graphics card from 2017. It takes some compromises for sure, you gotta be willing to tweak some things, but it is possible. But it also leaves us with this one big, lingering question. With games built on things like Unreal Engine 5 getting more and more demanding, just how much longer can this legendary budget hardware actually hang on?